While America under the Biden administration continues to inch every step closer to nuclear war with Russia by attacking deep into the Russian Federation, threatening the world to be dragged into nuclear destruction, while Biden is blindly supporting Netanyahu's genocide and apartheid's war with the Palestinian trapped in partition encampments through the Israeli army of inflicting terrible numbers of genocidal atrocities, using terrorism to terrorize people by blowing up their cell phones and smart devices. How can the world stand by when America's claim to be the world's sole superpower is inching the world closer to self-destruction? So I'm disappointed that Biden grandstand on stage and didn't condemn Netanyahu or condemn his own actions for pushing the world closer to nuclear destruction when the nuclear clock is close to hitting 12 because of Biden uncontrollably crossing red lines into the Russian Federation, deep into it, with his attackums directly posing a threat to Russia, forcing Russia to act because America and NATO keeps directly pushing and inching every which step closer to nuclear destruction. Now, for this reason, not to mention that America likes to keep the petrodollar going in order to prop up its well-reserved currency with purchasing power parities, while they devaluate the global South currencies with their controls of the fiats as the world flows American petrodollars, polluting the environment to the point that they're disordering the weather formations of this planet. And America is stuck on gluttony with their currencies, enslaving the whole world to be dependent on their fiats. That is tyrannical. That is enslavement with serfdom underneath one global currency, which is the gluttony of the Treasury Department and of Washington. For these reasons and more, I truly believe that all member states of the United Nations should have their permanent seat in the Security Council. That they all should have their permanent seats in the Security Council with equal votes. I truly believe in order for the United Nations to deal with the national security interests of the globe, of our international communities, through all nations on earth, the representation of humanity must be accounted for. What is going on while America turns a blind eye to the Palestinians and their plight of genocidal annihilations by the Zionist Netanyahu's armies that wish only on the one-state solution and are pushing genocide on the Palestinians for their faith in their hypocrisies. I believe truly on a two-state solution. I believe that Palestinians have the right to live in peace and be recognized as a tribe. The Philistines predate the Bible, BC and AC. So for the United Nations not to recognize their peoples is an atrocity. But since the United States is headquartered in America, and America is the world's sole superpower, the hypocrisies of the monopoly of the Security Council with the 5 members, permanent members, are playing tug of war back and forth with veto power as permanent members, while the rest of the world can only observe their actions as observant members. And then these 5 powers, they have the ability to pick who they want to sit as an observer, but they can veto their opinions. So when it comes to national security, you see why it is a bottleneck within the United Nations when it comes to these 5 permanent members. For that reason, I am communicating directly with Antonio Guterres to force the Assembly to amend a new amendment that would allow all nations on earth as members of the United Nations to be seated at the table and recognized in the permanent security councils. So I believe that all nations should be permanent members of the Security Council with equal votes to deal with the global issues that faces humanity globally. To deal with famine, to deal with nuclear destruction, to shield the world from nuclear destruction, to deal with the plight of the global south, third world regions with this trickle-down economics that America controls with their mighty dollar by floating the energy supplies of the world. You know how America got there? To prop up their currency in the petrodollar? After World War II, Roosevelt pinned our currency to oil through the House of Saud. And then the rest of OPEC members, America warmongered to muscle OPEC to keep on enforcing the petrodollar. So Iraq, Syria, Libya, Venezuela, Iran, they all been targeted by the Pentagon because America, through the National Security Committees, the Services Arms Committees, the Foreign Affairs Committees, they want to keep this petrodollar going. So the OPEC members have been warmongered directly by the Pentagon and genocidally killed through the Arab lands in Africa as OPEC members because they're not willing to be enslaved. So for that reason, America warmongers them in order to have hegemony currencies throughout the world, floating the gasoline supplies of the world, which is destroying this planet directly with carbon emissions. Because they're too greedy to decouple from the petrol. For 100 years of Rockefeller's engine, combustible through Ford automobiles, we exerted the fossil fuels and injected it into the environment of the atmospheres. Now it's causing a thermal reaction with methane and butane are burning up with UV rays that feeds into our atmospheres. And these gases are causing the greenhouse effect because of the sun heating up these gases, causing the thermal reaction of increasing temperature extremes. But America Washingtonians, they believe in this petrodollar. They believe in enslaving the whole world to it. They committed atrocities in behalf of their petrocurrency. The poor Arab states and the rest of OPEC members have been warmongered and toppled by the Pentagon just to keep this monopoly of hegemony over the rest of the world. It reminds me of when I look at the dollar and you turn it around with that pyramid and the all-seeing eye of the Senate and the Pentagon through their committees, closed-door hearings. They set in motion atrocities in order to prop up these petrodollars. The poor Arab nations that happen to be OPEC members, they suffered genocidally by the Pentagon toppling their nations in order to keep this gasoline flowing for the fiats of America's markets. Through the stock exchange of Wall Street, America controls the world reserve currency of enslavement to the global South and the global East. And even Europe falls under the umbrella of being second to the American currency as far as the Eurozone. So America, with their gluttony of greed, has no limit to what they do for the love of money, which is the root of all evil in these circumstances. America started the civil war in China to divide and conquer in the midst of World War II. They did the same for North Korea to divide and conquer. After Japan got hit with 2 nuclear bombs, America made a colony of these nations that have been warmongered and split in half for America to profit with cheap commodity goods of Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, the Philippines. They were trying to do the same thing to Vietnam because America considers Asia their economical colonies, their sphere of influence. And so the Asian region has felt the brunt of American foreign affairs through their Pentagons and their divide and conquer tactics for the love of money, to make Asia the territory of America's fiats. Now they're afraid that China has become too big for their britches, and so they want to pull the rug from underneath China's economy. They want to quad in China with their quad tactics, because America likes nations to do their fighting for them, and then they'll come in last and pick up the pieces. In regards to NATO and the Quad members, America likes to hide on the top of the pyramid where they're all seeing eye connivingly with the great mighty American currency, the mighty dollar. The Middle East has been genocidally warmongered for the love of oil in order to float this American fiats. Asia has been warmongered for America to have satellite states of commerce, colonies. Through Japan, they forced the emperor to bow with 2 nuclear bombs. They funded the civil war that split off Taiwan as a Chinese people, because the CIA or the American Pentagon through World War II had a tactic that they call divide and conquer. They funded the Chinese Civil War during World War II. They funded the Civil War in the Koreas. They were trying to do the same thing to Vietnam in order to make them economical colonies for the great mighty dollar. Now they want to quad China in because China is too prosperous economically, because they have 1 point some odd billion Chinese that America feels like we can't compete person to person with our production of labors. So for that reason, they want to quad the Chinese in and force them back to poverty and rice paddy field economics and deny them their right to technologies. The global south of South America, America wants to dollarize the whole of South America, to tax them without representation, because they don't control the purse strings of Washington. The peasants of South America, citizens of their sovereign Latin lands, of Latino from the Americas. So America wants to dollarize through private banking oligarchs at the Federal Reserve to leech off of dollarized South American colonies in order to flood it through the Treasury Department of America and prop up their stock exchange on Wall Street. They have a word for this. They call it banana republics. But what it really is colonies of Latinos under the hegemony of servitude, of serfdom, of slavery under this greenback. While the robber barons in New York make out as fat bankers, they call it fat cats. And so you start to see that the gluttony of America's greed starts to run rampant throughout the world. That's why I want the world to decouple from the petrodollar. I want the world to rise up within the global south. Y'all create your own unions and your own union currencies. This is a fair distribution of global order, with all nations on earth can sit at the table and be equal. When it comes to the third world developments and rising up humanity from poverty. So I congratulate the Secretary General for addressing the Assembly and acknowledging the needs of reforming the United Nations to deal with the current issues that faces the world. Trying to find resolutions to these problems. Trying to solve the world's ills. So I congratulate his hard work to contribute to these efforts. The difference between Secretary Antonio Guterres addressing the Assembly versus Biden grandstanding on wars, grandstanding on the genocidal war that's going on in Israel, grandstanding on the European war that's about to erupt with his attackums, leading the world into antagonistical nuclear destruction. So I condemn Biden's speech, and I congratulate the Secretary General, His Excellency, for recognizing what needs to be done within the League of Nations that became eventually the United Nations. Together we stand, divided we fall.